listen. So we're getting into the morning loop reloaded. It's this time where I get this sound effect on the show as I keep working on my buttons. And it sounds like this. I always think of Richie Rich when this sound effect comes out. I think I'll take the glass off this part of the show. All right. So, hey, I got something.
Oh, man. Look at Rich. Damn. Okay, Rich.
Yes.
Wow.
I don't mess around. Yeah.
Wow.
I gotta tell you guys, I was getting ready for the show today, and I was thinking about you, Johnny, with what I was doing. I was going to put my robe on and join the show with my robe today. I thought it could be Robe Thursdays or Robe Wednesday.
We got to do that. We got to put together a Robe Day.
Yeah.
Sure. It's going to get cold soon, so that'll actually be fitting.
And then what we could do, Johnny, is we could not tell anybody what may or may not be worn underneath the robe. And then we may play a game on the show with folks, like wondering what's Marty got under the robe, what's Richie got under the robe, no?
I'll tell you right now, I'm not going to wear shit under the robe. You know, the reason why I don't stand, you don't see me standing up and dancing because you see my drawers. I've never worn pants to this show, not once.
Oh, I love it. All right, we're reloading with the morning loop, and we're going to get into, I got something for you guys, which is 7 phrases. We're talking the power of the practice mindset. We're talking about how to change your life with the power of the practice mindset. And I found something, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, to help us get through life and defuse situations. Right. So I got 7 phrases that I want to throw on the table, 7 phrases that will help you de-escalate a situation. And I'm trying to find my tab here. 7 phrases that will instantly de-escalate an argument. Right. So if we're either going to work today, we're going to a situation with our kids or our family, and we're talking about practice. Right. So the first one that's going to help you instantly de-escalate any situation you're going into, nation, right now. I'll look at you. I'm going to start with you, Christina Flynn. Let's go around the table. Number 1, help me understand. Conflicts tend to escalate when someone isn't feeling heard or understood. Saying help me understand is a fast way to approach the situation with, I love this word, curiosity and openness. Christina, help me understand. Talk about that.
You need to, it immediately doesn't make you go into I'm going to save you mode, or I'm going to go what I think you need and try to give you advice based on that. You're always switching it to the other person to say, I don't know what's happening right now. Help me understand what's happening. Let's try to break this down. Let's try to have a conversation. And why practice is important for this. That simple phrase is very hard to do, especially if somebody's coming at you. Especially if someone's real frustrated with you and there's emotion in the situation. But stopping and practicing saying that will allow you to do it really easily. So it opens up the conversation to say, yo, I can see there's obviously a lot of emotion here. Help me understand what's going on in your mind so we can have a conversation about this.
Yes. Richie, I'm going to come to you, brothers. Arguments often become a you versus me situation rather than it's a you and me versus the problem. When we're going with our spouses or our partners or our business partners, it's you versus me. This leaves the two of you divided rather than united. The recommendation is, Richie, that is a problem. Let's collaboratively figure this out. By inviting your loved one, by inviting your colleague, your collaborator to solve the problem together, you're prioritizing a connection, Richie, instead of this a division to solve a problem. What do you think of that comment, Richie?
Absolutely. It's all about disarming, right? That's the first thing we want to do. We have use of force, and there's different levels of it. So the first thing we want to do is disarm the situation. Well, as soon as we can get everybody to the table working on the same problem, everybody thinks it's their idea. And so now, instead of in fight mode, we're coming up with this collaborative solution, and everybody believes that the other person is invested in their betterment.
Yes. Johnny, one of the easiest things we can do with our partner is to sit down and listen and say, that's a good point. Again, we're talking phrases that can instantly de-escalate an argument. Johnny, the power of those 4 words, that's a good point.
I'll tell you, when it comes down to it, if you're really trying to keep the peace, agreeing, it's going to shut it down. Like I always make the joke, this is obviously with people that I don't really give a shit about. Someone says to me, you're a dickhead. I'll say, probably right. It's over. Yeah. If I defended myself, now I got a beef on my hands.
Yes.
So obviously when it comes to loved ones, it's a little different because you don't want to lie to them. But when it comes down to it, usually with a loved one, there's something about their point that you can agree with. So when you basically you shift your position to where you're on the same page with them to some extent, it takes that confrontation away. I'm big on, I think that confrontation with loved ones is something that we should really be careful with because a lot of times those things they escalate, and unfortunately people they react rather than respond. And most times when people react, they're saying shit that they don't really mean, but can't unring that bell. You know, when someone that you love says something hurtful, you can forgive them, but it's always logged deep in your subconscious. That person has the ability to come off the handle and say some hurtful shit. So that's my take, is that when some level of agreeing with the situation will really disarm what's going on.
Yeah. Marty, what I'm hearing you say is this: interpretation is a powerful contextual validation of what somebody's saying. You can interpret something differently than how I'm interpreting something. I can be saying something to you that I'm hearing very differently. One of the ways that we can de-escalate an argument, Marty, is to lean in and say, so what I'm hearing you say is this, Chris. Talk about that. Did I get that right? Is that what you meant? Talk about the power of using that statement. What I'm hearing you say is, Keith.
You say Keith, Marty, but
I'm using you. I mean, you.
Okay. I got you. No, I agree with that. And there's nothing like trying to get your point across to someone and they're just not listening, or you feel like they're not listening. And we talked about that the other day, listening to hear or listen to respond opposed to listening to understand. Mm-hmm. You definitely want your partner to feel like what they're saying matters.
Yes.
And things can always get interpreted differently. And not to get off track here, but let's say I post a video like, hey, this lady here is wrong because she believes XYZ about fitness. They'll be like, but she's pretty. I didn't say she wasn't pretty. I didn't say that wasn't the point. But it's so easy for things to get misinterpreted. So that's actually a great point. And I'm glad you threw that to me because I need to use that more in my life.
Yeah. Christina, when you sit down with Aaron and you guys have an argument, one of the ways that we can de-escalate something is, I need to take a break. I'm feeling too upset to have a meaningful conversation. I have sucked at this because I've thought we got to talk, and I'm only learning the power of, okay, hold on, let's de-escalate everything. We're not having a meaningful chat right now. Christina, a tactic to de-escalate an argument is simply saying, I need to take a break.
Yeah, I think I talked about this a little earlier. We underestimate the power of our nervous system in a lot of these connections. And we get to this point of dysregulation. And many of us, and I was the same, was taught like, you never go to bed angry. So if you never go to bed angry, that means you're going to talk the shit out of something before you go to bed, versus I am a person, I'm flight. When I am dysregulated, I need to leave the situation because my brain stops working. And then if you're going to force me and continuously make me chat about something, I'm actually not going to be able to think or to process. So I'm going to shut down. And when I shut down, the conversation goes nowhere. So I think there's a lot of power in this that a lot of people need to accept more. It does not mean I'm done with this. That's a very different conversation. A lot of people go, I'm done with this, I'm gone. What you're saying is, I don't have the regulation, or I don't have the capacity right now to have this conversation. This conversation is important to me. It absolutely is. But can we come back to it in a moment when I am a little less heightened or in a state where I can actually participate?
Yeah, that's good. I want to share something right there too. And like personally in my life, I'm an over communicator. I'll tend to beat a dead horse. And Terry, there are times where is that a new one, Mark? You've never heard that one before?
I love it, man. I love it, man.
So as I over communicate in many cases, it basically just takes Terry to the point where she's not processing. It takes her too far. And she says, I need to take a break. It's not good for us to continue this conversation. And so, of course, I let her have that. It was very difficult for me to let her have that in the beginning. But what I want to say in the lesson in this whole thing was, when she's doing that, it's because I am not behaving in a way that's allowing her to stay in the conversation.
Yeah.
So if your partner needs a break, go look in the fucking mirror. Yep. What in the hell are you doing to push that person over the edge where they need to dismiss themselves? So that's just a page out of my book. And it was very difficult for me to recognize that. And then even harder to recognize when I needed to shut up, because she was getting to that point where she needed to take a break and I didn't see it coming. And now I'm much better at that. But it's, you have to really understand yourself, because it was my defaults. It was my behavior patterns that were automatic that were doing this. And if I didn't register that and shut those down, this would have never stopped.
Well, we all process things differently. And I think that's the point. Like oftentimes in a fight or in an argument, we're trying to process the way that works for us, but we're not trying to process things the way it works for our partner. So my wife is the same. My wife's a talker and she wants to talk it through because that actually helps her think it through. And then she's able to communicate better. But to your point, then I get an emotive shutdown and I'm not able to participate in the conversation because that's not how I process things. So acknowledging and recognizing that the way you process might be different than your partner's is a really strong step forward.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why this show has been magic for me, because of conversations like this. And Johnny, you sharing stories like that, because John, I can put the same pants on you are for the last 3 minutes and say the exact same words, man. Identical to what you just explained. Right. So I've had to learn that myself. And then Richie, I look to you to our next little, we got 2 more to go here before we get into the in the gym segment about changing your life, the power of the practice mindset, 7 phrases that can de-escalate an argument. Richie, it's this idea of too often arguments get bogged down often in this, you did this. No, I didn't do that. Hold on. Can we move to a solution stage, just like Johnny offered up, or Marty or Christina? What can we do differently next time? Rich, talk of that idea. What can we do differently next time? And doing it while you're in a good state of conversation instead of in an argument. How can teams handle conflict a little better by saying, what can we do differently next time? Rich Ingram.
So I'm a huge advocate for, we call them after action reviews in the military. I don't even know if they still use that terminology. But this is why in leadership and management, the Myers-Briggs test is really important, because we can identify, like I'm an ENTJ. Okay. So when I study each of my employees or subordinate leaders, what their personality types are, then I know how they process information. But we never want to start to review everything right after we've come up escalated. It needs to be set aside and say, okay, hey guys, like in the morning, yesterday we had this scuttle. We need to make sure it doesn't happen again, because everybody needs to process what happened. That's the point in all these things, is process and knowing how to manage everyone's different personalities and then move forward.
Yeah. And then the last thing is this idea of 7 phrases that will instantly de-escalate an argument. And I love this one. And I think you guys can all lean in with this one with me. It's this idea of expressing gratitude by saying thank you for being willing to talk about this with me. So when you can get comfortable enough to a point in the dialogue, whether the conversation, the argument, or the conversation is over, it's just being gracious and expressing gratitude to the other person. It takes courage, man. When you're fighting with somebody or you're in the middle of an argument, to put your balls on the line to say, you know what?
And I think underneath that is people are too worried about being right.
Yes.
Who gives a shit? I say all the time, I don't want to be right. I want to be happy. I'm happy to be wrong if that's best for my life, if it's best for my relationships. So if you're one of these people who feels like being right is going to help you, that's a really tough one, and let go of that quick.
Wow. Great learnings, great conversation here. Morning's Live, Morning Loop Reloaded, a little extended version here. We're going to get to the In the Gym with Marty, John, and Richie here in just a quick minute. Just going to wrap that segment up. What a great conversation around phrases that'll help you instantly de-escalate an argument. Today, we're talking about changing your life, the power of the practice mindset. Everything we just talked about it just leans into that. Right, which is yes, Shinko, put your balls on the line. Absolutely,
It's the same thing.
Constantly, and it's gonna suck. And I like how just Johnny ended it, right? It's not about being right. It's perhaps more about being grateful. And I think that to me is really what I take out of this last conversation. Okay, let's get to the In the Gym segment with John, Marty, and Richie. And I have tasked Richie and putting John and Marty on the line to talk